Remember that they're changing my voice. So it got really windy right before I was about to start my video about the Universal Martial Code. The first point is one must put the highest cause above all things. This means that character must be the central point, and true character only comes from universal pinpointed moral precision. So what is the true martial code from God, from the divine? Is that one must put the highest cause first. You must be willing to die for the highest cause and willing to sacrifice all things because that's the right thing to do. You got to do exactly what is right. And so that's why I put it as point number one. One must put the highest cause above all things. Point number two. Any individual, family, group, nation, or people, etc. that moves against me is the lowest form of filth, and they have moved against God. To the agnostic, etc., the source of life, justice, discipline, wisdom, righteousness, and true love, etc., God's Son and virtue. I go on to say that they could not possibly breed men, and if you think that writing this is too harsh, remember that they have had an overwhelming amount of evidence that has shown them why not to do it. So this one's a little bit tricky, perhaps. It's basically saying that if they move against me, they're moving against God, right? And that's contrary to the code. Sometimes, like right now when I just read it, I wasn't a big fan of the wording, but I understand why I put it the way I did when I first wrote it. It's almost like it's two different people, but I agree that it should be said, and I agree that it's not too harsh. I just at this point, I wonder if it could have been said in a way that was more soothing, more diplomatic. But when I think about the nature of the book, okay, the nature of the code, then I know that it must be something that is fair to say. And one must say what they mean, and they must say it with truth, with conviction, with heart. Point number three. There is no point in them taking over the world just to force people to do things their way. To do so utterly emasculates the governing class and everyone in their spirit. This is especially true of white, Jewish, and LGBT people, as they led the charge against me. They even tried to put themselves above me in the minds of foolish people. This brings them and their predecessors and offspring extreme disgrace. You should all know that none of them obey God through me. Now, let me stop here. Now, I'm not racist. You know, I've seen some white people today that were rather friendly, seeming. I've seen some older people, friendly, people at the various stores and what have you. I say what I said, I said what I said because it's fair. The fair thing to do is to judge people according to their deeds. Okay, the truth hurts. The word hurt is scrambled into the word truth for a reason. So as they moved as like a group, and they refused to kind of separate themselves to complicity, with complicity. And I know that a lot of people don't want to do it that way, right? They don't want to face the fact that the only way to truly not be part and partial, the only way to truly not be complicit is to come into the divine order, to come through the gate, right? To rally to me and reject cheating me out of my right to lead and so on and so forth. I know a lot of people don't want to accept that, right? That seems too hard for them. I've had people tell me, that after I'm gone, they'll do X, Y, and Z, and I had to tell them that's not good enough, right? This is the end of the Bible. It's not the beginning. This is not the middle. This is the end. Timing is a key life principle. So as I look at these scriptures and I think about, the various types of people and how they would respond, I think about, some cool people who just want to be friends with people. They don't realize that earth is like a battleground and there's no being neutral. Either you're trying with all your heart to be morally precise or you're not. And even if you're trying with all your heart, if you don't pass a certain point that you don't kind of make it, and that has to do with generational sort of positioning. Okay, so if your forefathers and foremothers decide to move to Antarctica and live under a cave, right, you're going to be outside the divine order. They made a decision for several generations at least, almost certainly, right? It's probably not just one generation. There's several generations of awareness to be there. So as this unfolds here, their children have to deal with that consequence. Just like if, people are born with AIDS or people are born with various disadvantages as a result of their parents' decision, and people are born with various ill-gotten privilege as a result of their parents' decision. It puts them at a disadvantage spiritually. It puts them at a disadvantage in regards to doing God's plan. But it's not hopeless until it's hopeless, right? So right now I'm still alive. I'm still here. There's still a chance for people to scramble to try to repent and to try to atone and make amends. Okay. Point number 4. Are eternally one in spite of their psyops? To use psyops to try to gain the upper hand utterly emasculates individuals, nations, spirits, families, and martial arts systems and their spirits. A. If someone partially cripples someone in a car accident and then tries to make it seem like people like them fight better or have a greater war spirit, etc., then they have emasculated themselves. This brings extreme disgrace on the people doing it and their group or groups. When someone does something like that, then they are a snake. Historically, the snake spirit is one with and yoked to the spirit of child molestation. To people who do not see the bigger picture, they can at least see that the rich in various parts of the world are yoked to child molesters, and the snake spirit is part of it. B. To insult the top martial arts ever possible, or have people insult me as self-emasculated. This brings extreme disgrace on the people doing it and their group or groups. Point number 5. To deny that I am the top martial arts ever possible utterly emasculates individuals, nations, spirits, families, and martial arts systems and their spirits. Point number 6. To use martial arts for sexual, political, cult-based, and other forms of unjust gain utterly emasculates individuals, nations, spirits, families, and martial arts systems and their spirits. Point number 7. Brute force is not divine force. The common fairy force that is so common all over the world and seems to come from the West is pathetic and childish. How much more when they pretend that being a fairy is divine? Look at the fairy nerd way look at the fairy nerd way that they historically depicted angels. Do they believe in the Tooth Fairy and Tinkerbell as well? Point number 8. Senseless violence is senseless, and their spirits get trampled by the spirit of sense-filled wisdom. However, having children these days and after is worse than senseless violence. 9. The word martial is like the word marital. And 10 to 189,000 deaths a day or so means that by default, the virtuous are slaying the souls of the wicked. Okay, now why is that? Because righteousness is a spirit that automatically takes actions. It automatically is at work. It automatically purifies those striving to be righteous. It automatically punishes the souls of those who are wicked. So when you see that all these people are dying, and they're dying for the wrong reasons, right? That's what goes without saying, is that the 189,000 deaths a day are people outside the divine order, and they're dying after living and dying in vain. All right. So this isn't quite going the way I wanted to go, so let me just end the last sentence of that point is, only complete warthogs and fleas and snakes and peacock cowards, etc. will rebel against me. There's no valid order after my flesh. I don't think it's a coincidence this is like my worst video of the day, when this martial code is more important than the Bible. I consider this book greater than the Bible because it gets straight to the point. Okay? It makes it clear